Hello friends and welcome back to the channel where today I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the newest champion in MCOC, which is Dracula here. Now it has been a minute since I've done a video like this where I've talked about my experience testing a champion before release, but truthfully it has also been a minute since I have been as excited for a character and excited for testing a character as I've been for Dracula. So in the CCP, we get early access to the deep dive videos that are sent out every month. And when we were able to see the deep dive video for Dracula, I was kind of hooked on him immediately. He really kind of struck me as like a mystic version of Viv Vision, a little bit of Kitty Pryde in there as well. High skill requirement for using the champion. So yeah, I was really excited for testing him, which I have done pretty extensively over the past several days. So I want to spend a little bit of time here just kind of talking through the pros and cons of him, kind of where I feel like he's going to fit in the game, some concerns that I have for him going forward. We'll cover all of that. So the first thing I want to say is that the fun factor for Dracula is through the roof. And I had a lot of fun playing him, learning how to play him, because again, very high skill cap for him, learning how to play him well, and you know, getting like 0 damage fights with him, very satisfying. Kind of scratches a similar itch that I get with Viv, right? Very similar characters in my opinion. I really like that his primary damage source is degen. So degen is direct damage. It's not subject to physical or energy resistances. And outside of like, you know, a few science characters and null, very few champions or nodes grant a defender resistance to degen. So his damage is broadly applicable to basically everybody in the game, every mode in the game as well, which is really, really powerful. It's applied at the start of the fight. There's like no escaping it, so it's just always there ticking down the defender. And I'm going to make another comparison to one of my favorite champs, Void. Void's damage is just kind of like always present, always, you know, ticking down the defender. So even in instances where the defender is kind of like turtling up, you are still, you know, getting their health down. Talking about his rotation for a second, it is really flexible. You can kind of choose the utility that you need. The special one has a passive slow, which is 40 seconds long, which is incredible utility. And the SP2 has a fear, which I think is also 40 seconds, if I remember correctly. So he has lots of ways to get the dire degen rolling. So the degen at the start of the fight, it's ticking like a normal damage over time effect twice per second. But if you start a combo with a light attack, it will turn the degen dire and will actually start ticking a lot faster and effectively be dealing additional damage. So a lot of ways to kind of get openings for light attack combos with him. You can bait heavies, you can use his invisibility, you can light intercept, really, really good stuff. I also like that his damage is not dependent on any sort of buff or debuff. So the degen is passive, which we already talked about. So it's not going to be shrugged off by skill champs or by nodes like Conflictor or something like that. And in addition, like, he doesn't have any sort of like fury or attack increase from a buff on himself. So kind of like his hit damage is what it is at the start of the fight and for the rest of the fight. So really, really good stuff there. The degen is pretty strong. It is 609. This is a rank 4, by the way. It is a 609,000 damage degen, ticking at the start of the fight for just over 11 minutes. So the idea of him like kind of being able to win a fight by just standing in the corner and doing nothing, like, it would be a really long fight, obviously, but it's possible, and I'm absolutely sure somebody's going to do that. Maybe even in like a war setting, just, you know, taking a fight and just standing in the corner baiting heavies. The degen will tick the defender down, and that'll be it. Really, really amusing. I kind of want to try that myself. I also think let's kind of talk about his invisibility for a minute. So you trigger the invisibility by hitting the defender's block, and then you get an invisibility buff for 2 seconds, which again allows you to get easy openings for light attack combos. So you hit their block, you stand there, they hit into your invisibility, and then you start a combo with your light attack, and you turn the degen dire, and that's kind of how you get your openings with him sometimes. The implementation of the invisibility is really fair to me. And I really imagine it being close to what Kitty Pryde maybe should have been if she had been subject to rebalancing. So the way his invisibility works is if they hit into it, then it goes on cooldown for a while. But if they don't hit into it, when that invisibility buff ends, it immediately is available again. So like you immediately get another opportunity to hit into their block and kind of get an opening that way. So really, really fair, I think, implementation of the invisibility. Now let's talk about kind of my concerns that I have for him. And the first concern that I have is that I'm not really sure kind of what problem or problems he is supposed to be solving, or like what his targets are supposed to be. He's got that passive slow that was shown off extensively in the deep dive, and it makes you think that he is like a Deathless Thanos counter. I've tested him quite a bit against Thanos. I even put out a short, it's actually live right now, and this video comes out, of him fighting Deathless Thanos. And, you know, he works fine for Deathless Thanos, but it's like he works well if everything else goes right in the fight. Like, Dracula has no answer for Thanos' Energize. His invisibility is going to be countered by Thanos' Panic debuff. And the biggest problem that I had with Thanos is that in more than half of my attempts, I would say, the timing of the rotation that you need to do, which is special 1 to get the slow active and then special 2 for the damage, the timing of that special 2 in that rotation almost always was being eaten by Thanos' protection. I mean, and on one hand, like, you know, very few champions can nuke through Thanos. You're talking like, I don't know, like Tigra and Nico are really the only two who can beat him handily very quickly. But yeah, like if his target was Thanos, he's kind of just okay for Thanos. And similarly, I really find that he's not good for Serpent or Dark Phoenix. So like right there, you think about the top 3 strongest cosmic defenders, and Dracula is like okay for one of them. So I'm not really sure where he's supposed to be targeting, or who he's supposed to be targeting in the game. Let's talk about his signature ability next here, which is called the Prince of Darkness. It has 2 different clauses to it. I want to say that overall I find very little value in the signature ability, and I don't think I'm going to use a gem on Dracula if I get him. The passive bleeds, talking about the first bullet point here, so you get a passive bleed on the defender, which scales with signature level whenever one of their effects is prevented by ability accuracy. So you're talking about evade, you're talking about unstoppable from the slow, and then you're talking about unblockable from the fear. This is nice in some matchups, I think, but like also bleed is probably the most common immunity in the game. So chances are pretty good that if you find a matchup where you can get some value from turning off evade or unstoppable, they're going to be immune to bleed anyways, so like you're not getting any value from this part of the sig. You know, I get why it's bleed, he's a vampire and everything, but like I really feel like this should have just been additional degens instead of bleeds to kind of guarantee that you get the bonus damage there from this part of the sig. Now the second part of the sig here I feel like has basically no value to me. So it's similar to kind of like what Rintrah has, where if you have armor breaks on Dracula, he's going to raise his attack rating. But like, you know, how often are you in a fight where there are multiple armor breaks on you? It feels really rare. Like maybe Annihilus, but Annihilus isn't a 7-star right now. Maybe Null, but Null has bleed and degen resistance, so like he's already countering like a lot of what Dracula is trying to do. So this armor break clause in the sig, I have no idea why this is in here, or what it's designed to be countering. Like you can think of maybe some nodes where you're going to get armor breaks on you, but like it's definitely not worth like the dupe for like a match that you'll have maybe like once every couple months. So very little value in the signature ability. The good news is, of course, that means that he is perfectly usable and still very good unduped. So don't worry about getting the dupe on him. Let's switch over to my Firefox here. So let's talk about his champion attributes real quick. Now, champion attributes have gotten a lot of attention lately with the Spider-Woman stuff, and I kind of want to remind you that the values here are kind of designed to show the team's intent for a champion at time of release. This isn't what they are, this is what they are kind of designed to be, right? And the values kind of lose their effectiveness over time as the meta shifts. Like in 6 months from now, these values might not make any sense anymore. But for right now, he comes out today, these values are kind of what he should be or what is designed to be. So let's talk about survivability. It's a 3 out of 5. I think this is fair. Like, Dracula feels very fragile when you play him. He does have some decent regen, but the regen is like top up chip damage good and not like can recover from a combo to the face good. So I feel like 3.5 is pretty fair. The regen is repeatable, it's on demand via the special attack, so you basically have endless access to it. So 3.5 feels pretty fair. Similarly, I would agree with the 4 out of 5 right now for the damage, and I think this is really on the strength of what we talked about earlier, where the degen is just so broadly applicable to defenders in this game because almost nobody is resistant or immune to it. So he is going to be able to get his damage going on basically any fight in the game. So that definitely, in my opinion, deserves a 4 out of 5. Ease of use, they have it a 2, and truthfully, I would probably lower this to a 1. Like, anybody can take Dracula into a fight and just play him, like you would any champion, and you're probably going to have a very bad time with him, and you're probably going to find him to be very slow. Playing Dracula very well requires a lot of practice and a lot of skill. And I would argue that this score needs to be lowered from a 2 to a 1. That's how difficult I think he is going to be for people to kind of pick up and learn to play well. We're going to skip over utility for a moment, go to Defender Strength. Defender Strength is totally fair at 2 out of 5. He really has nothing going on in his kit. Just bring somebody who can counter the degen and you'd be fine. But like even as a defender, again, the degen scales with base attack only. So as a defender in Battlegrounds, in War, the degen is not going to be like a huge issue for you. So yeah, Defender Strength, very low, perfectly fair. So let's talk about his utility score here, which is a 4 out of 5. And this is kind of the score that I kind of take the most disagreement with. I really feel like the utility score is too high at a 4 out of 5. So like, he does have the passive slow on a special 1, and it is 40 seconds long, which is really, really nice. He also has the passive fear on the special 2, which is good for countering unblockable. But, needing 2 bars of power to get to the fear and refreshing the fear is a lot to ask. In addition, he has like reduced potency of Mystic Dispersion. So it is going to be slower for him to kind of get to the 2 bars of power in the first place than it would be for other Mystics. But like, beyond the slow and the fear, he has like very little utility in my mind. Like, he has no resistances, no immunities outside of heal block, and the heal block immunity is cool, but like it's still pretty niche, I think, and I can't think of more than like 1 or 2 places in the game where I feel like heal block immunity would be a good thing to have. He also has access to Nullify, but it's limited to his special attacks, the sword hits on his special attacks. And like, I'm kind of have mixed thoughts on this. Like, I feel like he is designed to be a Mystic damage dealer and not necessarily like a Mystic, a typical Mystic champion who can counter like all the the buffs and stuff that a Cosmic Defender has. A lot of Cosmics these days are kind of have some sort of resistance or immunity to Nullify, so he's automatically not going to be that good for some Cosmics. He doesn't have access to any other Mystic stuff like Fate Seal or Stagger or anything. And beyond that, like, limiting the Nullifies to specials only, I feel like, I don't know, the Nullify just doesn't really feel that good to me. It feels, specifically good for like Thanos because he can steal Thanos' Fury buffs. So again, the Nullify feels a little bit more niche than on other Mystic characters. So yeah, utility I think is too high. I don't think his utility is very strong outside of the slow. The slow is very good, the fear is good, but beyond that, I feel like he has very little going for him in the utility department. Let's go back to his invisibility for a second. I'm kind of like reading through my notes here. So his invisibility, like I said, is very fair, a very good implementation. But unfortunately, it kind of suffers from the exact same problem that Viv has. And I keep coming back to comparisons to Viv Vision. And the issue here is that defenders are too frequently able to escape it. And so sometimes, you hit their block to trigger the invisibility, and rather than hitting into your invisibility, they just start backing up like feverishly, right? And that's, it's annoying, but it's okay because, your invisibility won't go on cooldown, and you can immediately just hit their block again to reactivate it. But too often during my testing, you trigger the invisibility, the defender hits into it once, and then immediately dexes back, before you can get your light attack to land. And that puts the invisibility on cooldown and really like disrupts your flow. Now you have to look for an additional opening here. So Viv has the same problem with her phase, where she triggers the phase, a defender hits into it, and then immediately backs off before you can counter. It's very annoying. They haven't been able to fix it for her, so I would expect that it cannot or will not be fixed for Dracula either. So just a really frustrating mechanic for him sometimes when the AI is not super cooperative. Speaking of super cooperative, I also find that he gets countered on light backdrafts more than any champion I can recall playing. And I don't know if this is like an animation issue or a range issue on his first light attack, but it's very frustrating on a champion who like really wants to intercept. You really want to get those combos started with your first light attack, and it feels like there's no middle ground with intercepts with him. If the AI does not run into your intercept, they are almost certainly going to just combo you, because the range on your light attack is going to leave you so close to them that they are always going to say, wow, the attacker is now in range and I'm going to hit them in the face. So so like the AI, if it doesn't cooperate, you're going to take a lot of unnecessary damage, I think, from getting comboed. So high risk, high reward playstyle with him. Again, I'm not sure if that's something that can be fixed or not. I think the last thing I want to talk about with him is kind of where I see him being useful in the game. And once again, I'm going to make the comparison to Viv, in that I think that most players are going to find him too slow for Battlegrounds unless he's punching down. And I say most players because there is undoubtedly going to be some very skilled players who rank him up and immediately are taking like, Zolas and Yelenas with him in like under 60 seconds, and absolutely good on those players. But I think that the experience for the vast majority of players is that he is going to be too slow unless he's punching down. And again, that's, the prevailing opinion on Viv is kind of very similar, right? I do think that this is perfectly okay with me, because not every champ needs to be a Battlegrounds champ or needs to be good in Battlegrounds. I think for the health pools that are in Battlegrounds, a lot of champs are kind of tuned around 3 bars of power, special 1, special 2, the defender is dead. With him, you kind of intentionally have to play slow. You want your combos to be slow so that the degen is ticking faster for as long as possible. So a special 1, special 2, or just special 2 only rotation won't always KO the defender, even at even rank. So I think he has the ability to finish fights at or close to max health or yellow bar, but getting a yellow bar finish in like a really strong time is going to be pretty rare for him unless you are a very skilled Dracula player. So if you take the time to learn him, take the time to really get good with him, you can probably get to that point. But again, for most people, he is going to feel, I think, too slow. Now, I think my biggest concern with him in terms of game modes is kind of where and how he's going to perform in Alliance War. So I'm mostly focused on War, as you may know if you've been to the channel before. And the biggest thing that I have to say about him in War, it is the degen. The degen only scales with base attack, which means that if you take him into an Alliance War setting, and usually you are boosted for an alliance war if you are playing at a higher level. Boosts are basically doing nothing for him because the boost will not increase the potency of the degen at the start of the fight. You know, and I get why this is made this way. You don't want like nodes and incursion hacks making the degen like massively overpowered, right? But losing a possible like 50% increase in the degen damage in a war setting, I really feel like that puts him at a disadvantage in the game mode because the degen is his primary damage source, and his base attack is lower than other champions to compensate for the fact that the degen exists in the first place, right? You can't have a hard-hitting champion who also has access to like a unavoidable degen, right? The base attack has to be lower. So like the boost do help his hit damage, but like most of his damage is coming from the degen, so like boosting his hit damage is not doing a whole lot for you. I really wish that the tech existed to allow him to scale his degen based on boosts specifically and not from like, you know, nodes or other external sources. I don't know if that's possible in the future, but I would really like to see him be a bit more useful damage-wise in Alliance War, especially because the health pools are getting larger, especially when you get to like the minis and the boss fights, and he's just going to be in there for a lot longer than other good options for these fights will be. And then thinking about the war map in particular, I do think he is going to provide a lot of value kind of in a vacuum on some specific nodes. Looking at the war map here that I have on my screen, like I think he'll be really good for the Mixmaster Mini on 40. I think he'll be really strong for node 38 with Ebb and Flow Knockdown and right back at it. But like he can't take any of the hazard shift fights, which I talked about earlier. He can't take Polka Dot Power because the degen is a passive effect. He'd probably be good for the Fight or Flight Mini 47. But like looking at paths, and again, I'm going to come back to Viv here. I really think that he is going to be difficult to path. I find Viv very difficult to path in our alliance. So I really would love to be wrong on this, but I am worried that he is going to not really find a home anywhere in Alliance War outside of like some super skilled players who are just taking like insane fights with him. So that's kind of all of the feedback that I had on Dracula. I do want to end with the fact that, you know, I have been pretty critical about some of the parts in Dracula's kit here, but I want to say that for me, the most important part of how I evaluate a champion is how much fun they are to use. If I'm having fun with a champion, I really don't care if they're, you know, very useful in war or battlegrounds or whatever. And that's, you know, again, I'm going to come back to Viv one last time. I love Viv Vision because she is so much fun to play. If people don't think she's good, I don't really care. If she's, you know, can't take every Battlegrounds defender in 30 seconds, I really don't care. She's fun to play. And in that regard, Dracula is very, very similar. He is just so fun to use and to learn and to play. So, like, I would say that all of my criticism is kind of tempered by that fact. I'm still planning on trying to get him today, and I'll probably rank him up immediately if I get him, just because he is just so much fun. So, to kind of summarize, Dracula, not a champ for everybody, very powerful, very good, looks awesome, definitely high skill cap, so you need to be aware of that for sure if you are interested in going for him. So hopefully this helped you guys and you enjoyed listening to me yap for what feels like forever on a champion who comes out today. But let me know in the comments what you think about what I've said today. If you're going for Dracula, let me know if you get him, and as always, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again next time.